Hi, I'm Paul Snyder, and I am the chairperson of transportation design at the College for Creative Studies, the best school in the world for transportation design. And I've been the chairperson here for 8 years now. I'm really looking forward to checking out what you guys have done.
Hi, my name is Jason White. I'm an assistant professor of transportation design here at the College for Creative Studies. Previously, I've worked at Ford and Hyundai. I was involved in such interiors as the '08 Escape, the 2016 Nautilus, and I'm anxious to see what the Guardians have to show us today. Says every second counts, and that's certainly the case in any gaming situation. I've experienced that many times myself. This attitude is definitely conveyed in this vehicle, both in terms of color and shape and proportion. Whether we know it or not, we're hardwired to react a certain way to combinations of colors and shapes in automobiles and other products. These tend to give us a great deal of information about the product's nature and its capabilities, and this simple dark gray and red color scheme really communicates a lot about the vehicle. It's very well understood that the message here is that it is a competitive vehicle and it's built for speed. The shapes remind me of a stealth fighter. Some of that might have to do with just the dark color scheme. I think it's some of the forms too. I'm also drawn to this Sparrow because it's quite minimal compared to some of the others. Many car designers agree with the Mies van der Rohe quote, "Less is more," that you can get a lot more out of a design if it is more restrained and more simplified. I think that works here especially well. Definitely looks sleek like a stealth fighter. Some of the parts may induce drag, but it definitely looks fast. The seat seems well distanced from any of the pointy objects up front, so I guess the ergonomics are good. Overall, I would give this one a 9. Probably because it hits a lot of things, like as a car designer, that I try to do. And I try to hit on color, shape, and proportion. Shape mainly, but definitely proportion and color.
I have to say it's my favorite. I kind of think that the title is a little bit lame though. It's like you're not only on time, man, you're ahead of the pack. We're in a sci-fi realm here, so as long as the guy is ducked down and holding the controllers, I don't think he's going to be flying off. I don't think aero's that big of a deal here. I like that the positioning ergonomically is really aggressive. He's going to be leaning way far forward like a racing bike. And I really dig this one. I'm going for 10 on this one. It's my favorite.
I'm a big fan of cinema, and even the darkest films, there's always some point in there of levity or some comic relief to just lighten the load along the way. It's never just straight dark the whole way. There's always something to provide a bit of relief, and I think that this vehicle does definitely that. It's definitely more playful in its personality. It obviously achieves this via the proportion, the size, and the color choice. The other thing too, I would look at this vehicle, and instead of thinking of it as a joke, I would first find it fun and amusing. The other thing I would think is, okay, it looks small, so I can't expect a lot of power out of it. It looks like it can move a bit freer than some of these other Sparrows, so that could be an advantage, despite its playful nature, despite how whimsical it is. If you look closely at it, it has parting lines and technical details, and that's what keeps it from looking too silly or too toy-like. And it helps relate it, oddly enough, back to the other Sparrows and keep it from looking too far out of step with the rest of them. For aerodynamics, I wouldn't suggest it very aero-friendly because of the pontoons. Ergonomics looks pretty comfortable to me. There's nothing too out of the ordinary about it. And I would give it a 7, just a little bit of relief, comic relief within the game's very serious environment.
So in this one, I'm kind of getting like R5 turbo vibe or like a Miata with a V8 kind of vibe in it. It's like a retrofit in a really small package. I'm not really sure what the regulations are with the Sparrows, but they all have the same engine. Being smaller and thereby being also lighter would be an advantage if your engine displacement or what have you is meant to be a level playing field. I kind of wish there was a little bit more continuity front to rear. And it feels also like the ergonomics, like the guy's knees might be up in his elbows if he's going to put his feet on those pegs there. So maybe that's why you guys are laughing, because it's the way the rider looks when he's on it, right? Looks like a total dork. But, I think it's a good effort, and it is what it is. At my top 5, but there's something about it that's pretty cool. I'll give it a 6.
Slow down. Where's the fire? Other than the actual... You know what? Never mind.
This Burnout one seems hell-bent on incendiary battle tactics. This actually has a lot of relevancy in terms of the way cars are designed right now, because a lot of brands, if not all of them, are using light as a brand identifier. And although this is really a chaotic looking design, when you start to look at it, it's immediately identified by the streaks of flame. It's like fingers kind of reaching out. The chains and the spiky features on the vehicle suggest an experienced combatant, one that should be taken seriously. And it's kind of a bummer. One thing that you can't really do as a car designer is play with patina very much, because everybody expects the product to be new and shiny and clean. So patina is generally not an area that we get to play with. And this is a product that definitely, or a vehicle that definitely uses patina to its advantage. War-torn and weathered. Adds to the image of it. As far as the aerodynamics, it's not very aerodynamic, but I don't think that's probably the most important consideration here. Ergonomics, the spiky objects near the seat and the heat of the flame coming backwards at the rider would probably make for a rough ride. Hopefully they have some kind of kit that they wear that deals with that. Overall, I would rate it a 6. Just because I'm hardwired to expect and design something that's tidy and well put together. This one's, for my taste, a little too ragged. I can't fault it for delivering on what it promises.
This one has probably the most kind of affinity to a motorcycle of the sort of Harley hog cruiser variety. You know, that's cool. There's a whole culture around that I totally dig. At the same time, the weathered look kind of conveys a Mad Max vibe, you know, Thunderdome. You know, so I'm kind of feeling that kind of devil may care, covered in sand and dust and road rage. Like, again, but it's not really my aesthetic. You know, like Jason said, we're into shiny new things that have, you know, very precise gaps and fit and finish quality and things like that. That's the kind of thing we generally are attracted to. But it's really cool. I give it an 8 just for attitude.
You know nothing of sacrifice.
The importance of capturing technology seems to be a recurring theme in this series. This should be reflected in the aesthetics and functional makeup of vehicles. The Tilt Fuse definitely does that. You'll find a lot of parallels in the car design world as well. There are vehicles that are designed to be expanded upon. Trucks and SUVs, Range Rovers, vehicles that are higher end. Tilt Fuse has a look like that because of mainly because of the hydrogen cartridges that are strapped to either side, but color is used well here too. Neon green and black looks sport themed, so that works. Also, another feature that I like is that it has a HUD right in front of the driver that appears to be on a transparent surface, which should be very useful for the rider, seeing vital info without taking their eyes off the terrain. There are similar features that have been tried in car design with some success here and there. As far as the aerodynamics go, it would definitely be more efficient without the strapped-on bits. That probably creates some drag, and it gets high marks for me for ergonomics because of the fact that it has the HUD out in front. I'd give this one an 8.
Yeah, this thing is really cool. For me, it doesn't seem like it fits the story that it was designed by the Cabal. But it's awesome, like the very first one, you know, it has real great kind of speed form proportions to it. You know, it's a super long nose and a really swept back, aggressive seating position. Those look like Whippet canisters strapped to the front of it. Kind of not really sure, but I guess, you know, if ripped off by the Cabal, you got to get your stuff off it really quick, right? But overall, I think it was really cool before those things were strapped on. I do like the ones behind the seat because that's kind of a better place to put them. I dig this one. I'm going to go 9 too, and it would have been a tie for top place if it didn't have the canisters strapped on there. Great attention to detail, like the underside of it is really, really great as well.
The Twilight Gap, where Lord Shax earned his name.
I find this design interesting because it really expertly combines organic and mechanical components. And that's a really hard balance to strike. You can't simply put those elements together and expect them to just get along by default. Oftentimes they won't unless you make some effort to bridge the gap between the two. Regarding the part of staying in motion, the vehicle certainly in motion even when it's standing still. And that's something that car designers are always striving for because it's not a product that sits in one place. If it's moving all the time, then the aesthetics generally reflect that. The theme also does convey a sense of royalty. That's largely due to the material choice. There's a lot of gold foil in there that really communicates that, but the form vocabulary communicates it too. Many luxury cars convey their status through a sense of combining craft and ornate material choices, just like this theme does. So there's a lot of similarities to the way a luxury vehicle would be handled by a car designer. It reminds me of Ray Harryhausen's Mechanical Owl from Clash of the Titans in just its execution. Very similar. Personally, I would rate it a 9. In terms of aerodynamics, there's a very small frontal area, which is good. Feathers may induce a little bit of drag, but at least it's pointed at the front. The seat itself seems sympathetic to the occupant, so I would rate the ergonomics pretty high. The only concern I would have is the sharp details right in front of the rider position. If something goes wrong and you have to stop suddenly, might not be a fun experience, but overall I'd give it a 9, just because it's a very, very cohesive design that delivers on what its intent is.
This one's very interesting. It's not very common that you have literal interpretations of things like any kind of man-made or natural object in a car design, with the exception of maybe, the Oscar Mayer Weenie Mobile or parade floats and that kind of thing that are very literal. So this is like more in the sort of concept design realm where, I kind of feel like a superhero villain vibe going on. And this would definitely be a superhero, but it's very dynamic looking. It's very fast looking. It also looks tough and heroic. So I like it. I'm going to go 8 on this one. The obviousness of the wings is maybe a little too far for me, but it's executed really well.
The Fallen for me. Good.
So for the Riis Racer, the description that said, no, this one goes here, that one goes there, that's actually a paraphrased quote from The Empire Strikes Back.
No! This one goes there, that one goes there, right?
This creates a problem for me as a designer. If that's the backstory, then I look at the vehicle and I'm like, wait a minute. I'm confronted now by a vehicle that doesn't look discombobulated or a collection of parts or scavenging or just being somehow rigged together. It looks sleek, it looks cohesive, it's streamlined compared to the other Sparrows. Car designers strive to create a compelling rationale behind what they're doing, a story. The problem here for me, personally, is that I'm faced with a design that I like a lot. It aesthetically appeals to me, but it doesn't match the backstory. It's easily the most aero-conscious of the Sparrows, so it gets high marks there. Seating, it seems good to me, although the exposed switches that are on the top there, working one of them would require you to only ride with one hand grip for a minute or a second, so that could be an ergonomic challenge. I give it a 6, and it would be higher if the backstory matched the design.
This one seems really sleek, and I like it a lot, but, if it was meant to be scavenged, it would probably look more like something the Sand People would have thrown together. This thing looks like it was made by a really high-tech futuristic culture. And also, those look like toggle switches on the top, the binnacle there. I think those would want to be closer to the hand grips so that you don't have to take your hands off the grips for as long. I don't know what those purple pads are behind the seat, but they're not too annoying. They look strapped on like a little bit of storage or something. But otherwise, this thing is really cool. The story doesn't make sense. Dismiss the story and give this one an 8.
In my nightmares, I see him still.
This vehicle paints a picture of a merciless, single-minded pursuit, and that definitely fits for the Hive enemy class, which is also part of the description. Car designers don't generally, or at least these days we try to be a little less literal in what we do. But this vehicle is being very literal about what inspires it. It's definitely organically inspired. The only mechanized portion of it appears at the back where the rider is. And it seems kind of disassociated from the front, which as a designer for me is kind of unfortunate. My instincts tell me if you're going to go for it and make it a completely holistic, organic feeling vehicle, don't just tack on a mechanical piece on the end of it. I will say this too, some modern car designs have been accused of looking too angry and aggressive, and they pale in comparison compared to this. So maybe we're not as angry and aggressive as I thought. Aerodynamics are not ideal, but again, I don't think that's probably an important consideration for a vehicle like this. The ergonomics, the saddle at the back looks like somewhat worn, but it does look comfortable. I give this one a 4 simply because the disconnect between the back and the front is just a bit too far for me.
I think this thing is driven by the bad guys. I'm all about having a strong defense, but if you're going out causing havoc in the universe, man, you're not going to get a lot of love from me. It's just the guy who drives this one, it just seems like a prick. As far as design goes, it's just got this Death Race 2000 vibe with all these knives and spikes and spearheads sticking out of it. It's just gore. I'm going to give this one a 3 because it just kind of bumming me out.
Pike reminds me of a lot of larger SUVs with their girth and stance, suggesting a lot of raw power and not so much maneuverability and agility. It's similar to Blood Runner in a way that it has a very organic feel. It almost, to me, looks like a charging buffalo in a way. The other thing I really like about Pike is that it's a cohesive theme from a car designer's point of view, which the Blood Runner was not. The body shapes and the surfaces are very consistent from front to back, which is good. Can definitely see this vehicle leading a forward team of scouts. It provides a very imposing presence, which is what you'd want to do if you're leading your troops into new territory. As far as the aerodynamics go, the size and appendages suggest that aero is, again, not a top priority. It does seem on par with the other vehicles in terms of ergonomic. I was going to give it a 7, but I'm going to go a bit higher now. I'm going to give it an 8, simply because of how cohesive it is.
Yeah, I like this one too because it's very different from the other ones in terms of the proportion. The rider sits much further forward, and I think it's well executed in that way too. But I also see Jason's, what he's seeing with the bull, kind of, because it's got this, big thorax, rib cage kind of thing up front, right? Whereas so many of the other ones are really thin in the front, and that mass volume is more pulled towards the rears. This is cool. I don't get how you get your hands around those handles. The dudes that ride them look like they have really long arms. Yeah, no, I dig this one. I'm gonna go. I just kind of wish the paint job was a little bit cooler, but the volumes and the proportions and the overall sort of concept is really, really great. So I'm going to go 8.
All right,
All right,
James.
man.
Take
All right,
care of
Guardians.
yourself.
Fight the good fight, Guardians.
Yes.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.